Photoshop sucks. There. I said it. Okay, it doesn't suck, but it can be incredibly aggravating. Hey guys, Danny here, and in this short video, I'm going to demonstrate and discuss an issue in Photoshop that has me pulling my hair out. But I'm also going to discuss what I'm doing about it. And at the end of this video, I'll share my thoughts on Photoshop's potential future in my pipeline. Let's get into it. First, a quick disclaimer. This is not about Apple versus Windows, Mac, or PC, or which is better. I use both. I have throughout my 25-year career. I prefer Macs, but you do you. Use what makes you happy. It's all good. I bring this up because what I'm about to show you will differ from Mac to PC. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to start with Blender, and I'll explain why. So this is the blend file for the recent Wii Jedi image, the Tatooine thing that I posted on Facebook and my website and such. It's really not much here, right? Okay, but what I want to show you is in the compositor. So you can see it's quite simple. I have 3 view layers, and each has an image pass, an AO pass, and I have a mist pass on the base view layer as well. So pretty simple. Nothing real complex out of Blender here. The reason I show you is because I want you to know what we're starting with. Okay, so let's jump into Photoshop here. And in Photoshop now, I'm going to open the EXR file that Blender exported. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! Yay! Absolutely nothing. All right, this is what Photoshop opened. Photoshop failed to open the multi-layer EXR file. Woo! Good job, Adobe. Now, this isn't a Mac problem. The same would happen on Windows too. This is a Photoshop problem, an Adobe problem. The same EXR file will open in After Effects using a built-in plugin. Yeah, a plugin because Adobe still can't build this functionality into its apps. In fact, the plugin that's currently in After Effects was once a third-party plugin you had to download. As of about a year or two ago, they started including it in After Effects. They didn't actually write the ability into its code. They just installed the plugin permanently for you. Neat. This brings me to the Mac versus PC variable. On the PC, there is in fact a plugin that you can download. It's the only one that Adobe supports through their Adobe, CC plugin library thing. It's called like EXR.io or something, and it's a great plugin. Like, fantastic plugin. Props to the developer. It will allow you to open up multi-layer EXR files. It'll allow you to choose how you want to handle your alpha channels, your cryptomats, etc. And it works really well. It's great. It, however, does not work on the Mac. The developer did not write a Mac version of it, which is not the developer's fault. He just chose not to write a version of that for the Mac for whatever reason. This is, in fact, an Adobe problem, because Adobe is relying on third-party developers to add functionality that should be there by default. So here it is. The only thing Adobe actually got right here was that it opened up the right size image. That's it. This is a lost cause. What am I going to do about it? Well, this is what I'm doing about it. So check this out. So I'm going to jump in here. This is Affinity Photo. And some of you may know it. Some of you have heard of it. Maybe some of you have already switched to using it. I've had Affinity Photo since its release, sometime around, I want to say 2014, 2015. And I've been hoping and praying to the gods of computer graphics that one day it would replace Photoshop in my pipeline. A lot of reasons for this. But so far, I've not been able to pry myself away from Photoshop. But ladies and gentlemen, I think those days are numbered. Let me show you something. I'm going to open up that exact same file. And voila, no dialog boxes, no errors, no issues, nothing. What I have are my layers. Here is my OpenEXR file in layers. Okay, I'm just going to turn these off, and I'm going to rearrange them a little bit so I can explain this. This is not a compositing video, but I do want to explain a couple things that I feel are relevant. Oops, that goes there. Okay, what are we looking at here? here's my base layer, here's my base AO, here's my BB8, there's my BB8 AO, there's my vaporator, there's my vaporator AO, and then there's my mist pass. That's exactly what I exported in my OpenEXR file from Blender. Okay, it just works. There's no problem here. There's no hang up, right? Everything is smooth and fast. And something that I feel is worth really noting is if you look up here in the upper left, you'll see it has some statistics. It has the image size, 3840 by 2160, 8.29 megapixels. But right here, RGBA 32 HDR. This is a 32-bit file, okay? And even on the Windows side of things, if you open up this OpenEXR on Windows in that plugin, right, it'll open up, everything will be fine. Except once you're in Photoshop now, you have very limited editing ability in 32-bit. I mean, you can use Adobe Camera Raw and stuff like that, which is great. But your blending modes and your layer blending modes, you have maybe 2 or something like that. Most of them are grayed out. You have no adjustment. You can't use any of your adjustment layers, or at least most of them. You can't use a lot of your filters. You have to convert down to 16-bit or 8-bit before you can use any of that stuff. In Affinity Photo, this is amazing. I can work entirely at 32-bit from start to finish. I have access to all my blending modes, filters, adjustment layers, live filters, everything. It's all here, and it all works, right? In 32-bit. That, to me, is a slap in the face to Adobe. Photoshop has been around since the mid to late 90s. Affinity Photo has been around since 2014 or 15. And yet, I can do this in here. But that's a topic for a different video on differences in quality of code, Affinity Photo versus Photoshop. For now, I just want to stick to this particular task at hand. The way this now works is just like you'd expect it to work, right? AO passes typically don't have alpha channels out of Blender. That's to be expected. So I can do this a couple different ways. The same way you would do it in Photoshop is select your layer that you want to mask, select the layer that you want to mask, and then just mask it with the little mask icon here. Let me just do that, okay? And there it is, okay? And then I'll just make this multiply, and then there we go, right? It's the same. It's exactly what you would do in Photoshop, no difference. Okay, beautiful. Let me undo this a couple times. The other way to do it, which I think is kind of cool, let me go ahead and just multiply this. Okay, so you can see that it's not alpha channel. Now, the EXR file that I imported contained alpha channels for all of the layers that are transparent. So the base, the BB8, and the vaporator, right? But you don't see them in the layers panel. But if I select the layer, and then I go to my channels panel, my channel panel, you can see there it is, base.rgba alpha. There it is. In this particular case, if I were to right click on this and say create mask layer, that's exactly what happened. Affinity Photo made a mask layer. It's a specific type of layer in Affinity Photo, and simply just drag it to the layer I want to mask, and that's it. Now, just to drive that home, I'll do that again. So I'm going to turn on the BB8 layer. There he is. Turn on the AO layer, switch that to multiply, and the same thing. I just select here, create mask layer. There it is. Drag it onto the AO, and then there it is. And then again, I have full control over this AO layer now. And again, I'm in 32-bit. Even though the photos I get from stock sites are typically going to be 8, I will work in 16, most of the time. And to do that is really simple. All I have to do is go to Document, Convert Format, ICC Profile. I'll switch this from 32 to 16, and then I'll usually choose Adobe RGB and convert. And that's it. It's done. I'm not asked if I want to merge the file or not merge the file or whatever other nonsense Photoshop asks me. But I'm now working in a 16-bit Adobe RGB file, and I'm good to go. Now, again, I don't have to do that. I can stay in 32-bit if all my assets were 32-bit and I wanted to. And that's the beauty of this, right? That's just part of the amazing ability of this particular software, is that I have that ability if I want to do that. And I cannot do that in Photoshop. I can't even open the damn file in Photoshop, right? Okay, so as I said, this is not a compositing video. This was just showing you how I'm dealing with that one particular asset. Videos are coming that are going to go much deeper into my workflow and compositing, how I'm going to use Affinity Photo. The workflows are different. If you're not familiar with the two programs side by side, workflows in Affinity Photo are different than Photoshop. Different way of thinking, different way of approaching certain things. Tools are different. We don't have smart objects, but we have something else. So all of that I'm going to explain in future videos. So if you are interested in doing 2D, 3D composite work and you want to use Affinity Photo, then by all means, subscribe if you're not already. Hit that bell icon so you know when videos come out, because they are coming. All right. Also, let me know in the comments if you want to see something specific, and I'm happy to make videos tailored to specific needs. Okay, so let me know. Okay, so here we are. That is how I solved this problem that I am now faced with. My choice was either not use OpenEXR, go back to using PNGs and TIFFs, or not use Photoshop. I opted for using OpenEXR. So what does that mean for the future? For my workflow future. I can tell you that before I made this Weed Jedi Tatooine image thing, Photoshop was my go-to for all my photo manipulation compositing needs, period. That's what I went to every single time. But now I'm not so sure. Once I made this image and I got the results that I did, I realized that my dependency on Photoshop was all in my head. Photoshop isn't really necessary anymore. And this image proved it to myself. Prior to this image, like I said, I was using PNGs and TIFFs. And once I made the switch, Photoshop became my enemy, not my ally. And so I think the writing is on the wall. I think my days of using Photoshop are numbered. This could very well be my last year with Adobe. My renewal is up later this year. And if at least a couple of these issues aren't addressed by then, I think I'm officially going to say goodbye to Adobe. Maybe I'll play taps or something in the background. I don't know. Anyway, that's it, guys. That's all I've got. I hope that for those of you who are using Affinity Photo or are considering using Affinity Photo and do this kind of work, doing 2D, 3D image compositing, or you want to do 2D, 3D, I say image, but I meant stills compositing, that you found this useful. And I hope you check out the future videos that I've got coming out. Hope you find those useful as well. Be civil to one another, make cool shit, and I'll see you in the next one.